What's up everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Let's dive into our first news. Paul Felder and Michael Bisping recently criticized Ilia Topuria for his latest controversial comments, calling his approach a questionable move. Topuria publicly targeted Team Khabib and Islam Makhachev, claiming he would submit Islam and taking shots at the entire camp. While the criticism was not directly about the matchup itself, it focused on the timing and underlying contradictions in Topuria's behavior. Both Felder and Bisping highlighted that Topuria has repeatedly mentioned dealing with serious family issues and needing personal space to focus on them. Yet, despite these claims, he is actively provoking fighters and teams to respond aggressively, creating a contradiction that cannot be ignored. Felder described Topuria's actions as a SHT move, explaining that one cannot simultaneously request understanding and quiet while publicly starting conflict. He emphasized that once the door to confrontation is opened, people are bound to respond, regardless of any personal challenges Topuria may be facing. Felder further aligned with Team Khabib's perspective, noting that bringing family matters into public discussions changes the rules. When a fighter claims they need peace, others are placed in a difficult position. Responding can make them appear antagonistic, even if they were the ones initially targeted. Ali Abdelaziz also weighed in, expressing confusion over the situation. He pointed out that while Topuria has been given space and respect to address his family problems, he continued to speak about Khabib, Islam, and Arman for no apparent reason, even though he is not actively fighting. Abdelaziz argued that such actions make it hard to justify giving him a pass, suggesting that Topuria's behavior appears aimed at staying relevant in the media, podcasts, and public discussions. Felder and Bisping echoed this sentiment, noting that commenting on fights and fighters while not scheduled to compete seems more like a strategic move to remain in the spotlight rather than a genuine competitive statement. Overall, the criticism of Topuria centers on the disconnect between his personal claims for space and his public provocations, highlighting the delicate balance fighters must maintain between personal matters and professional conduct. But before we jump into the next story, we have a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying the content, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon. It really helps us out and ensures you'll never miss an update. Moving on to another news. Josh Thompson recently provided an in-depth breakdown of a high-stakes middleweight clash between Reinier de Ridder and Caio Borralho, set to take place at UFC 326 in Las Vegas on March 7th. This matchup is significant for the division, especially as the middleweight title picture begins to take shape, with Khamzat Chimaev preparing for a spring title defense against Nasruddin Imavov. The next wave of contenders is already positioning themselves for a shot. Fighters like Sean Strickland and Fluffy Hernandez are emerging as top challengers, and it is highly likely that the winner of the de Ridder-Borralho fight will soon find themselves in title contention. However, there is uncertainty surrounding Chimaev's long-term plans. Just weeks ago, he suggested he might move divisions after only one title defense to chase champ status, exploring options at light heavyweight or even returning to welterweight, asserting that he can still make 170 pounds. This scenario could set up potential champ versus champ matchups, particularly if Kamaru Usman captures the welterweight title in 2026. Their first meeting was a 3-round thriller, leaving fans clamoring for a 5-round rematch. Chimaev's possible double champ opportunity would be monumental for the UFC, especially with the organization entering its new Paramount TV deal. Thompson described the de Ridder versus Borralho fight as a compelling matchup between two highly touted contenders, both coming off recent losses and eager to climb into the top ranks of the division. He noted that Borralho is strong on the feet and capable on the ground, while de Ridder's wrestling, though not elite, is complemented by impressive clinch work. Both fighters have ample time to prepare, make weight, and recover, and both are physically imposing for the division. Thompson highlighted de Ridder's activity over the past year, fighting 4 times, a remarkable feat given the demands of weight cutting at competition. He concluded that consistent in-cage experience is the best way for fighters to refine their skills and maintain performance at the highest level. This fight promises to be an exciting and pivotal bout for the middleweight division, with implications for future title contention and the ongoing reshaping of the UFC landscape. Moving on to another news. A recent training clip has surfaced online showing Justin Gaethje grappling with his teammates while specifically drilling arm triangle defense. Kamaru Usman was present during the session and decided to step in to challenge Gaethje himself. What happened next immediately caught everyone's attention. Usman effortlessly secured a choke and forced Gaethje to tap, leaving many fans questioning how Gaethje will handle elite grappling pressure in a live fight situation. This incident comes just weeks before Gaethje's title fight against a highly skilled grappler like Paddy Pimblett. The clip quickly sparked a heated debate among fans, many of whom expressed concerns over whether Gaethje's wrestling and submission defense are truly at the level he claims. For months, Gaethje has maintained that his grappling has improved significantly and that fans would be surprised by his overall game. However, this footage did the opposite, casting doubt on his readiness against top-tier opponents in the division. Paddy Pimblett himself reacted to the clip with a mix of humor and skepticism. In a now-deleted tweet, he mocked the situation, writing, "That's your guy," referencing Gaethje's apparent struggle against Usman in the gym. The exchange highlighted how elite-level grapplers can expose even seasoned fighters during training sessions, and it raised legitimate questions about Gaethje's preparedness for high-level grappling exchanges. Observers noted the technical details of the choke. Usman maintained a tight arm triangle flank, Gaethje's bicep, and controlled the position with a knee on the hip, systematically forcing the tap. Gaethje's defensive efforts were ultimately insufficient against Usman's pressure, emphasizing the challenges he will face against a grappler of Pimblett's caliber in the octagon. Overall, the clip serves as a reminder that even experienced strikers like Gaethje must continually refine their grappling skills. With a title fight looming, fans and analysts alike will be watching closely to see if Gaethje can translate his improvements from the gym into success against elite competition. Moving on to another news. Just weeks after UFC Qatar, Paddy Pimblett opened up about a surprising run-in with Arman Tsarukyan and shared his thoughts on Ilia Topuria and the upcoming fight against Justin Gaethje in an interview with Papa Legaspi. Pimblett revealed that Topuria's return to the octagon is expected in late spring or early summer, as personal matters have taken priority. Despite this, Pimblett made it clear that his primary focus remains on eventually facing Ilia, who he refers to as El Matador, describing it as the fight he wants most in the lightweight division. He also noted that if Topuria isn't back by June or July, there's a possibility he may have to vacate the belt, which could further shake up the division and create new opportunities for contenders. Regarding his upcoming bout with Gaethje at UFC 324, Pimblett expressed confidence in his game plan, stating that he believes he can control the fight and doesn't see it lasting beyond the third round. On the rivalry front, Pimblett admitted that his respect for Topuria has grown over time. While he initially thought Topuria was merely seeking attention, it has become clear that Ilia is a legitimate threat in the cage. When discussing his encounter at UFC Qatar, Pimblett recounted a brief run-in with Topuria's entourage and spotting Arman Tsarukyan at one point. He didn't engage directly with Tsarukyan but made his feelings clear, labeling him an absolute idiot while affirming that Topuria is the fighter he intends to face. Pimblett criticized Arman's recent behavior, noting his withdrawal from a title fight the night before, an altercation with a fan during his walkout, and other questionable actions. While he acknowledged Tsarukyan's recent win over Dan Hooker, he argued that Hooker's grappling skills are limited, implying that Tsarukyan's path in the division may not be as impressive as it appears. Overall, Pimblett's comments highlight his focus on the bigger picture, preparing for his next fight and ultimately settling the score with Ilia Topuria while offering a candid assessment of the other fighters in the lightweight division. Moving on to another news. Carlos Prates recently revealed an exciting update regarding his path to a UFC title shot. After his impressive first-round finish over Leon Edwards, Prates disclosed that Dana White personally confirmed he would earn a title opportunity with such a victory. Speaking about the moment, Prates explained that during a pre-fight interaction, he asked Dana directly if knocking out Edwards in the first round would guarantee him a shot at the championship. Dana's response was clear and decisive: "Yeah, for sure." Prates recounted that the moment was captured unexpectedly. He was wearing Meta glasses, which had sponsored him for the fight, and the interaction was recorded. The footage quickly went viral on social media after being shared on Instagram, spreading excitement among fans. Prates admitted he was initially concerned about Dana White's reaction, wondering if the UFC president would be upset about the casual conversation being made public. However, The exchange highlighted Dana's straightforward approach and the clarity of Prates' title aspirations. Carlos also emphasized that becoming champion has always been his primary goal. The conversation with Dana White was more than just a casual promise. It served as a personal affirmation of what Prates has been working toward throughout his UFC career. The confirmation of a title shot following such a dominant performance not only validates Prates' skills, but also sets the stage for a high-stakes matchup that fans have been eagerly anticipating. This revelation demonstrates the confidence the UFC has in Prates as a contender and underscores the significance of his first-round victory over a top-tier opponent like Leon Edwards. With the title shot now officially on the horizon, Prates is positioned to make a major statement in the division, and fans are left eagerly awaiting the next chapter in his championship journey. Moving on to another news. The MMA world was surprised recently when the UFC announced that undefeated welterweight Rinat Fakhardinov would no longer be on their roster, despite his impressive performance in the promotion. Since signing with the UFC, Fakhardinov had maintained an undefeated streak and capped off his run with a stunning 54-second knockout in his most recent fight. Following the news, he addressed the situation on Telegram, clarifying, "No one fired me. The contract expired, and for certain reasons it wasn't renewed. The offers are already pouring in with very different pay." Despite Fakhardinov's explanation, speculation quickly spread across the MMA community regarding the reasons behind his departure. Some fans suggested that his release may be related to his Russian nationality. One user wrote, "Expect more of this and an overall reduction in Russian fighters on the roster. UFC is a business. Money is the bottom line. Forget sport or meritocracy. The vast majority of Russian fighters, as elite as they've shown themselves to be, do not generate revenue." Fakhardinov's release has reignited debates about how the UFC evaluates fighters, with some arguing that performance alone is no longer the only metric. Critics pointed out that the promotion may prioritize marketability and revenue potential over merit, especially when it comes to fighters from certain regions. This trend has led some Russian athletes to compete under different flags to navigate these challenges. Fans have been vocal about whether the UFC should have offered Fakhardinov a new contract, highlighting his undefeated record and consistent performances. Many are questioning the promotion's decision, arguing that cutting a fighter of his caliber undermines the competitive integrity of the sport. Ultimately, Rinat Fakhardinov's departure from the UFC illustrates the complex balance between performance, nationality, and marketability in modern MMA. While he may no longer be with the promotion, it's clear that his career is far from over, with multiple offers reportedly already come in, signaling that the talented fighter will continue to make waves in the sport. Moving on to another news. The UFC has once again made headlines for removing multiple fighters from its roster, with recent cuts sparking debate across the MMA community. The latest wave of departures has predominantly affected European fighters, drawing attention to the promotion's ongoing roster management. One of the most surprising cuts involved undefeated welterweight Rinat Fakhardinov, who held a 6-0 record in the UFC with one draw. Many fans expressed confusion and frustration over the decision, noting that Fakhardinov had recently delivered an impressive 54-second knockout in his last fight. MMA journalist Nolan King later verified that Fakhardinov parted ways with the UFC after completing his contract. Fakhardinov himself clarified the situation, stating that nobody fired him, rather. His contract expired, and, for certain undisclosed reasons, it was not renewed. He assured fans that the situation was not negative, noting that multiple offers are already coming in with different pay arrangements. He emphasized that his passion for fighting goes beyond financial gain, and he remains focused on continuing his career with dignity. The MMA community reacted strongly to the news, with many criticizing the UFC for allegedly prioritizing marketability over merit. Comments circulated suggesting that the promotion is reducing the number of Russian fighters on its roster, focusing instead on athletes who generate revenue rather than those with undefeated records. Critics argued that this approach risks undermining the legitimacy of the sport and leaving the organization with a talent-deficient roster, as fighters with losing records continue to receive high-profile opportunities. In addition to Fakhardinov, other fighters released include Loik Ratsibov, who had not competed in the UFC since a loss to Trey Ogden in July 2024 and held a 2-2 record, and Elizel Zilaleski dos Santos, who compiled a 1-1 record in the promotion, most recently losing to Neil Magny in August. These roster changes highlight the UFC's ongoing strategy of evaluating fighters not solely on performance but also on marketability, leaving fans and analysts debating the future direction of the promotion and the implications for competitive integrity.